story of Scar, the legendary lion from the Lion King, is one of betrayal and ambition. But what if I told you that the seeds of his villainy were planted long before he ever met his brother, Mufasa? What if the real story, the one that truly created Scar, began with his parents? Today, we re-dive in deep into the forgotten lore of the Pride Lands to uncover the family that created a monster. Let's travel back in time, before Mufasa and Scar were born, to the reign of their father, Hadi, and their mother, Uru. Now, the official books paint a complex picture. Hadi, the king, was often depicted as stern, preoccupied with his royal duties, and perhaps a bit neglectful. He was a good king for the Pride Lands, but maybe not the best father. Uru, on the other hand, was gentle and loving, the heart of the family. Their firstborn was strong, confident, and golden-maned. He was the spitting image of his father and the clear heir to the throne. From the very beginning, Mufasa was groomed for kingship. He was taught the ways of the circle of life, the responsibilities of a ruler, and he soaked it all up. He was the golden child, the son every king dreams of. And then there was Taka. Yes, that was his original name. Taka, smaller, darker in complexion, and less physically imposing than his brother. Taka was often overlooked, while Mufasa was training with their father, learning to command the respect of the animals. Taka was often left in the shadows. He spent more time with his mother, Uru, who saw the good in him, but her love couldn't shield him from the growing feeling of inadequacy. Imagine growing up constantly in your older brother's shadow. Mufasa received the praise, the attention, the lessons in leadership. Taka received, well, not much. Hadi, his own father, often compared him unfavorably to Mufasa. Why can't you be more like your brother? This constant comparison started to breed a deep-seated resentment in young Taka. He wasn't just jealous of Mufasa's future crown. He was jealous of the fatherly love and approval that Mufasa seemed to get so effortlessly. This is the crucial part of the story. The neglect wasn't malicious. Not always. Hadi was busy dealing with droughts, managing disputes, and protecting the kingdom. His focus was on the bigger picture, and in his mind, Mufasa was the future. Taka was an afterthought. This parental favoritism, intentional or not, became the fertile ground where Taka's bitterness took root and began to grow. He felt like he had to fight for every scrap of attention, every bit of recognition. Desperate to prove his worth, Taka started looking for ways to outshine his brother. He wanted to show his father that he was just as brave, just as smart, just as worthy. This desperation led him to make a fateful decision. He began to associate with a trio of Hyena Shenzi, Bonzi, and Ed. He thought he could use them, manipulate them to make himself look good. He concocted a plan. He would lure Mufasa into a dangerous situation with a buffalo, and then Taka would heroically save him, finally earning their father's respect. The plan was foolish, born of a child's desperate need for approval. He told Mufasa that the buffalo, Boma, had refused to share a waterhole, and that he, Taka, would go reason with him. Mufasa, ever the responsible older brother, warned him against it, but Taka wouldn't listen. He went to confront the buffalo, intending to provoke him just enough for his grand plan to unfold. Of course, it all went horribly wrong. The buffalo wasn't in the mood for Taka's games. Enraged, the massive animal charged. Taka's plan to be a hero instantly backfired. He was no match for the beast's fury. It was Mufasa who had to rush in and save his younger brother. In the ensuing chaos, Taka was struck by the buffalo's horns, receiving a deep gash over his left eye, a permanent reminder of his failure. When Hadi found out, he was furious, but his anger wasn't directed at the buffalo, or even at Mufasa for getting involved. It was all aimed at Taka. He didn't see a son who was hurt and scared. He saw a son who had foolishly endangered the future king. He saw failure. And in that moment of anger and disappointment, Taka, nursing his bleeding wound and his shattered pride, made a declaration. He looked at his father, at his perfect brother, and with a voice dripping with newfound venom, he said that from that day on, he would no longer be called Taka. He would be known as Scar, so that no one, especially his father, would ever forget his mistake. It was a defiant act. He was taking his shame, his physical and emotional wound, and turning it into his identity. He was embracing the darkness that had been growing inside him. This event was the turning point. It solidified the dynamic in the family. Mufasa was the hero, the savior. Scar was the troublemaker, the reckless one, the failure. Ahadi's disappointment only deepened, and Scar's resentment festered into pure hatred. He no longer wanted to earn his father's love. He wanted to destroy the brother who had it all. The wound over his eye was nothing compared to the wound in his heart. From that day forward, the brothers were truly divided. Mufasa went on to become the wise and beloved king we know, while Scar retreated further into the shadows, his mind consumed with plots and schemes. He saw the throne not just as a position of power, but as the ultimate prize, the one thing that could finally validate him and prove his father wrong. His entire life became a long, patient game of revenge against the family that, in his eyes, had wronged him from birth. When we watch The Lion King, we see Scar as the villain who kills his brother to steal the throne. But now, understanding his backstory, we see it differently. His actions weren't born out of a simple lust for power. They were the culmination of a lifetime of neglect, favoritism, and resentment. He was a product of his environment, a prince who was never treated like one. The family dynamic, the pressure from his father, and the constant shadow of his perfect brother all conspired to turn a young, insecure cub named Taka into the infamous villain, Scar. The tragedy of Scar is that perhaps, with a different upbringing, with a father who saw his worth and a brother who was under constant reminder of his shortcomings, his story could have been different. But as it stands, the family that was meant to nurture him instead created the very monster that would tear them apart. It's a powerful lesson that the deepest scars are often the ones you can't see. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the Pride Land's past. It really changes how you see the legacy. Now, Disney has never officially given us a full, detailed backstory for Ahadi and Uru, the parents of Mufasa and Scar. But over the years, through a series of books called The Lion King, 6 New Adventures, we've been given some incredible clues. These stories paint a picture of a complex family dynamic, one where good intentions might have paved the road to disaster. Let's start with the king, Ahadi. Ahadi was a strong, noble king, much like Mufasa would become. The books describe him as having a golden coat and a flowing black mane, a mix of his 2 sons' future appearances. He was respected, he was powerful, and he was deeply committed to his duties as ruler of the Pride Lands. He believed in the circle of life, and he worked tirelessly to maintain balance and harmony. But Ahadi had a problem, a blind spot that would have catastrophic consequences. He saw the kingdom through the eyes of a future king, and in his eyes, that future king was From the very beginning, Mufasa was the chosen one. He was older, stronger, and more charismatic. Ahadi saw in Mufasa the perfect heir, and he poured all his time and energy into grooming him for the throne. He took Mufasa on patrols, taught him the history of the kings of the past, and explained the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Every lesson, every word of praise, was directed at his golden-haired son. So, where does that leave our dear Taka, the lion who would one day call himself Scar? While Ahadi was busy with Mufasa, Taka was often left in the care of his mother, Queen Uru. Uru was said to be a wise and loving queen, with a beautiful, earthy brown coat. She saw the potential in both her sons, and tried her best to nurture them equally. But a mother's love couldn't fill the void left by a father's neglect. Imagine being a young cub, watching your father praise your older brother day in and day out. You tried to get his attention. You tried to show him you're smart, that you're strong too. But his gaze is always fixed on your sibling. The books tell a story of a great drought that plagued the Pride Lands. Ahadi was stressed, working around the clock to find water for his subjects. He had promised to take Mufasa and Taka hunting, but his duties forced him to break that promise. Mufasa, ever the dutiful son, understood. But Taka was heartbroken. He felt forgotten, cast aside once again. This is where the bitterness starts to fester. It's not just about wanting the throne, it's about wanting the love and approval of a father he could never seem to win over. In his frustration, Taka fell in with a bad crowd. The hyenas, he concocted a plan to make his father look bad and Mufasa look weak. He told Mufasa that a Cape buffalo named Boma was hoarding water, goading his brother into a confrontation. The plan, of course, backfired spectacularly. Mufasa was nearly trampled, and Taka, in a moment of panic, or perhaps a sliver of remaining brotherly love, tried to intervene. The result, a furious buffalo herd, and a deep, angry gash across Taka's eye. That day, he earned his scar. And when he returned home, defeated and wounded, what did his father do? Hadi was furious, not just at Taka's recklessness, but at the shame he had brought upon the family. In a moment of anger, he mockingly nicknamed his son Scar, cementing the boy's shame and forever branding him with his failure. This moment is the turning point. It's where Taka dies and Scar is born. The name itself becomes a constant, burning reminder of his father's rejection and his own perceived inadequacy. He wasn't just the second-born anymore. He was the scarred one, the failure. While Mufasa was destined for the sunlit peak of Pride Rock, Scar was relegated to the shadows, both literally and figuratively. Hadi wasn't necessarily a bad lion. He was a king, focused on the future of his kingdom. But in his single-minded focus on his heir, he failed to be a father to his other son. He created the very monster that would one day destroy his legacy. He taught one son he was everything and the other that he was nothing. And in a world where your place in the pride is everything, that's a dangerous lesson to teach. The jealousy that consumed Scar wasn't born in a vacuum. It was nurtured over a lifetime of perceived slights, of being overlooked, of being compared and found wanting. Every time Hadi praised Mufasa, the shadow in Scar's heart grew a little darker. Every time he was left behind, the whisper of resentment grew a little louder. He wasn't born evil, he was made. He is a tragic figure, a product of a family that, for all its nobility, was deeply flawed. When we watch The Lion King again with this knowledge, Scar's first scene hits differently. His line, "I shall never be king," isn't just a statement of fact. It's the lament of a lifetime. And when he says, "As for a brute, I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool," we hear the echo of his father's disappointment. He's not just a villain scheming for power. He has a deeply wounded son still fighting a battle against his father's ghost and the golden boy brother who always won. So, the next time you see Scar, remember Taka? Remember the little cub who just wanted his dad to take him hunting. The story of the Lion King is a tragedy, not just for Mufasa and Simba, but for the brother who was lost long before he ever took a life. The jealousy wasn't just born, it was rice-fed, and given a name by the very king who should have loved him. What do you think? Does knowing about Hadi and Uru change how you see Scar? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It's a fascinating look at how family dynamics can shape destiny. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss our next adventure into the stories you thought you knew. See you next time.